you guys have, seen it all, done cases, from adult prison, youth prison. If you guys had, two things that you could speak to young people or even like two things that you think that would, reduce youth crime, what do you guys think it would be, honestly, from Amgad and from you, Daniel, too?
I think it starts from the home. Parents are key, of course. Siblings are key. School, teachers, those people are very key in a young person's life. Good influences around them as well. Putting kids into whether it's sports, whether they like to play the piano, whether they like to dance or whatnot. Getting them busy, using their minds, exercising. Those are key things, in my opinion, that can change a young person's life. If they do have dreams and aspirations and things, don't diminish them.
Before this episode begins, we want to acknowledge the people who were harmed by our actions in the past. We take full responsibility for the harm we cause. Nothing in this series is intended to excuse or glorify that behavior. We're sharing these stories to be honest about what happened, to show what change can look like, and to help others build a better path. We used to lead bad, now we're trying to lead good.
The highest they've been since records began.
Victoria is cracking down on youth offenders with children as young as 4.
Melbourne is fed up with the youth crime crisis.
Too many children are just slipping through the cracks.
Welcome to Lead Good, another episode. Jude, how are you?
Loving it. Good to be back.
We've got an interesting one today. I thought we might start off just by updating our listeners and viewers that we're still waiting on the legal approval or the court approvals for the Lost Boy episode, which are the years which you share the offending, but the underage offending as a minor between 15 to 18 years of age. And we're hoping that we get an outcome on that particular episode in the coming days. In fact, today's guest is involved in that process. And today's guest are two really impressive people that I'm pretty sure you're proud of. We've got two lawyers on the podcast today, and they're going to take us through the reality of the legal system and the role it plays in youth crime, not only in justice, but also to prevention and the reduction of youth crime. We're joined by Daniel Ajak, who is a African-Australian man who came to this country and he's built himself a law firm. Incredible Australian story. Something we're really proud of. Daniel's here and he's built himself a firm with offices across Australia. He deals in family law, criminal justice, commercial litigation and conflict resolution. And it's great to have you here, Daniel.
Thank you. Thanks, Lewis. It's a pleasure to be here with you and Judo, who I've known for quite some time. And also Amgad, or Bling Ajak is known by some of the magistrates.
Well, here's another... This is really interesting, Judo, because you've known Amgad, who is an incredible story, 16 years of age and arrives in West Sydney, and then same, a little bit older than you, but you both knew one another in the young days. And so, Amgad, you did yourself a law degree, and now you are practising law in Daniel's firm. Great to have you here as well.
Thanks, mate. Just to confirm, I was 16 when I came to Melbourne. 16.
Sorry, my mistake. How old were you when you came to Australia?
I was 4.
Oh, you were 4. Well, we'd like to ask you, we're going to ask you both just to give a brief overview of your story and your arrival in Australia, because we talked about Judo's arrival here in Australia as a 2-year-old and then how he made his way into his life choices. Let's give a little bit of a brief overview from you both, starting with you, Daniel, if you could just give us your story coming to Australia and your experience and where things are at now.
Well, Lewis, I'm an Aussie, but we've all got roots, like the first Australian who arrived here, and the First Nation people. So my parents fled South Sudan, or Sudan back then, in the would have been the early 80s, as a result of South Sudanese Liberation Army taking up a fight against Northern Sudan, or the Northern government at the time, for not only political reason, but to fight for black Africans in Sudan. So my father was involved and was asked as an elder and as a leader to go with some of the young lost boys, or known as Red Army, to go into Ethiopia. They were told they were going to be going to school, but technically there were sort of training camps for them to be trained as soldiers. So my parents fled, would have been April 1991, just shortly after I was born. In early 2000, my parents decided to take the punt for me and my sister, my only sister, to come to Australia, to start a new life, to get an education and not have to go through what they went. So I settled in Adelaide in 2004, went to language school for a year to learn English, and then transitioned to a state school in north of Adelaide in a place called Greenacres. Then I got a scholarship to an all-boys school in Adelaide, Prince Alfred College, in year 11 and 12, and then straight to university and did a law degree. And following the wave of, I guess, bashing the African community and the South Sudanese community, that was what really inspired me to then leave Adelaide to come to Melbourne, where I've been sort of in the last 8 years.
It's an interesting point you raised, because youth crime is not an African issue.
No, it's not.
It's a community issue.
No, it's not.
I'm interested in your comments around the media bashing. I think the media portrayal is better now. You've only got to look at the support that Judo's got, for example, in the press. But there was interesting that you were motivated by the singling out of African youth in terms of crime. But the reality is, statistically, without getting into that, but African offenders are in the minority in terms of overall stats, but they do over-index in terms of percentage of population. Is that not true? Or
there's truth to that, and it all you've got to do, you've got to really jump on the Department of Justice and Community Safety website, and all those stats are there. But what I can say is, over time, community, in terms of the media and the community, progressed to a stage where it's no longer a South Sudanese issue, it's no longer an African issue, but more of a national issue, of a national crisis, more of a cry out by young kids for, doesn't matter whether they're South Sudanese, Pacific Islander, First Nations, Anglo or white Australian, it as a whole, and I guess that's why the story's sort of been a success, because if you wind it back 2015, 2016, 2017, there weren't a lot of nice things said about African men who allegedly get involved, and it didn't help when you had leaders in the community, mainly sort of politicians, trying to use that to gain political points, when really all you've got to do, you got to look at young men like Gut and Peter Bowl, and those boys playing in AFL, to see what the significant contribution we've made is a community in the last, and we've only been here 20 years. We haven't been here for too long. But this is home. You got to look, from committing offending to working in factories, working in professional settings, working in the public sector, in sport. We've
got a big contribution to make.
So it's really
You think that helped, like the South Sudanese, the good stories that came out of young South Sudanese men? Do you think that helps with the media? Did that help change a little bit?
Well, my experience with, like, say for example, I'll give you an example of Peter Bolt when his I think his last Olympic, he had such an incredible impact. He's an exemplary of what when young men are given the opportunities to sort of thrive, then that's what happens. Like, he went to good all boys schools. I'm not saying give all the kids an opportunity to go to private school, but he's always had mentors and supports around him, and I think Ipswich is probably one of the schools around the country who do that really well with young African men or South Sudanese who they sort of take on board.
So what you're saying though is that when there's a level playing field,
yes, we can thrive.
You can thrive and excel like anyone else can.
Yeah, and like Amgad and Judo are about the same age. I met Amgad playing community soccer. His first year law student at Deakin. I was still a legal aid at the time. I told him I'm in the process of setting up a practice. Once my gut tells me I'm ready to go, jump on board, we'll get you to intern, and if you're keen, we move it. And that's what I did. And it's quite incredible to sort of look back, and see how much contribution Amgad or both of us have sort of made, especially in his last 6 years, in his journey as a lawyer. And when he started appearing in court, the first thing the bench would say is that he Miss Ajak's little brother. So it's really we're not related. There's no blood ties, and I'm Mr. Ajak Senior. I wasn't a perfect kid when I was Judy's age. When I was a young teenager.
What does not perfect mean?
If you picked on me and you call me the N-word, or you threw a banana at me, or you're bullying one of my friends, I'll hit you.
That doesn't mean you're not perfect, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I appreciate it. So you reacted in a way that you think...
Well, because that's what I knew in the camp, when I grew up in the camp, you were told, you got to stick up for yourself, and if you went home crying, mum and dad be like, or your brother be like, well, what are you doing? Go back. So but see, the luxury is I'd spend 2 years in a state school in north of Adelaide, sort of low socioeconomic part of the community, where the other young kids, First Nation, like also refugees, who had parents in custody, a lot of things going on at home, so they had reason to pick on me and not be nice, and obviously I knew how to defend myself, but actually it was that conduct that led to me ending up at Prince Albert College, because I had stuck up for a Chinese friend of mine, who's been bullied, and I was prepared to protect him. So I didn't know anything about scholarships to elite school, but it seems in the Chinese community or the Asian community that was sort of prominent, So he told me, Daniel, I'm applying for scholarship at St. Peter's Boys, at PAC, at Scotch College, at Pembroke, you should apply too. So it was by luck, that because I stood up for him and slapped a couple of other kids. He then volunteered that information, and I was able to get a scholarship with them. Yeah, that really changed my trajectory, because when I went to PAC, then the boys told me, well, if you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an engineer, well, you can't be doing dumb shit.
So now we just heard Daniel's story, unbelievable, very powerful. But now we we go over to Amgad, and I want to hear the story, your upcoming, your upbringing and everything, So walk us through it.
Yeah, so born in Khartoum in Sudan, went up to Egypt, very young age, maybe 1 or 2. Had my mum and dad had another child early on. When I was about 4, came down to Western Sydney, grew up in Blacktown, just normal kid. That area it's a lot of African community in there, so I felt at home. There wasn't much change from where I grew up back home anyway. Normal kid, just play soccer. Didn't really care about school too much. I knew I had some sort of potential. I wanted to stay good enough in the middle so my mum wouldn't get mad at me, and then just play with my friends, just play soccer, play basketball, play footy. And then around 2016, about that time where things got pretty bad in the media. Growing up, I didn't really see South Sudanese people get in trouble from where I was from. So when I came to Melbourne in that period, that's when things kind of took off. That opened my eyes, because I grew up with people that are older than me most of the time, because I'm the oldest child. So seeing that just in front of your face everywhere in terms of social media, whenever you look at the TV, I was, I didn't know what to think of it, to be honest. There was warnings from my parents before I came to Melbourne, because at that stage, at 16, 17 years of age, that's probably where the most...
The risks.
Yeah, high risk age at that time.
What does risk mean, boys?
If you go around the wrong crowd and doing the wrong things, some bad things could have happened to you at that stage. And that really deterred me. That was the first time I was like, okay. And in terms of when I decided to take school serious, would be maybe 11. When I first came to Melbourne, the media did kind of make me go in that direction as well. Why I chose law, I just watch Suits. I like Harvey Specter. You know Suits?
Oh, the TV show Suits, right?
Yeah. So I watched Suits in the summer.
You were inspired by Harvey Specter.
Yeah. So I didn't know there was a thing called a law firm. I thought lawyers just walk around but on their one, like by themselves, and just represent people. So when I was watching Suits, I didn't know what type of job they were doing, but it looked cool. And
it looked like you could do it.
Yeah, I like the way I like the suit. It looked cool. And that inspired me to go into legal studies in 11.
What school, mate?
Emmanuel College down at Point Cook. Got really close with my legal studies teacher. I used to just go into class first, sit down with her. Her name is Miss Trohan, and she was a big inspiration to me. And she said to me one day, you have to break the door. I didn't know what she meant by that, but she just said, if you want to be where you want to be, you got to break the door. No one's gonna let you get there. And she saw that potential, and I just took it from there. I took it so serious that I stopped playing sports For about 2 years, for 11 year 12, I stopped playing soccer, which is my first love. My mum and dad were worried as well about all the kids running around, because as bad as it is now, in that period, and Judo, you probably could remember, it was almost every week something bad was happening. It didn't get to the stage until maybe a couple years later where deaths got involved. But at the start, in terms of fights, affrays, invasions, things like that was very popular.
So what made you stay locked in? Like, you see all that on the news and things like that, and I'm not saying probably your friends or you knew people that were part of that crowd. So what made you stay locked in and like, nah, that's not me. I'm gonna get this law firm. Like Daniel said, like things would happen, but he would walk away and he would just stay locked in.
I had no choice. I'm the oldest, bro. I'm the oldest. Yeah, I have 5 younger siblings. I had to do what I had to do. I have
You're next up.
Yeah,
Next
2
to me in the
parents.
house, yeah.
Yeah, they always instilled in me importance of education and being. My mom calls it a classic man, and every time now when I come back home, I still live with them, and I'm in my suit. She just smiles, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what made that, instilled that in my head, that I didn't want to go that route.
Be them small things, just like coming home wearing a suit, your mom would be so proud.
Yeah. And I told her at the start of 11, I said, I want to be a lawyer. And she said, no one ever pressured me into a certain career. She just wanted to be a good man and, just be honest, truthful, and stay out of trouble. And but the biggest thing would have been the fact that I'm the oldest and got 5 younger siblings, and I had no choice. I had to do it.
No, well done. You should be proud of yourself. But like now that you've, like once you stayed locked in and you got into that law firm and you met Daniel. Yeah. How was life then?
Well, it's kind of weird. I seen Daniel when I was in university, just in the media. There was an article that they had about him. I found it peculiar that we have the same last name, which kind of like, oh, that's cool. I never seen a black lawyer before. So when I saw that kind of added more motivation. So like, we can do it.
Exactly right.
Daniel's on an article, he's talking about youth crime in, I think this might have been when you were on legal aid.
Yeah, shout out. It would have been Harold Son too.
Yeah, something like that.
Shout out Harold Son for that.
Yeah. So, and when I see them in person at the soccer event, I was kind of caught in awe. I was like, I was about to graduate. I didn't have any plans in terms of where I was going to go after university. So I just came to, say hi. We actually got linked in through a mutual friend. I play soccer with a player called Abbas, Abbas.
Yeah.
And he told me, there's a guy called Daniel Ajak, which I already knew who he was. He has he's starting up a firm. You should lock in with him, see if you can get opportunities. And I reached out to him on social media. He said, 100%. Once everything started up, you can come through. COVID happened, so there was issues during that time where you couldn't go in person. So that kind of hampered at the start. And then obviously in Melbourne we had that 6-month, 8-month period where it was on and off, and a lot of things were unstable. So I just stopped. I didn't really reach out that much, given the instability with what's happening in Victoria with COVID. And Daniel, which is funny now, I look back at it, he messaged me on Messenger. He's like, you haven't hit me up. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you got to chase me up about these things. Come to my firm, come tomorrow. And I was like, cool. And that's when I first started interning. And it was good up until, so then I graduated now. I told Daniel, I graduated, I'm going to start my PLT soon. And he's like, and I was looking for a paid role, so a paralegal role. And people think the fact I have the same last name and they think that we're brothers, that I didn't have to apply. I actually had an interview with Daniel and the former partners to get the role. It wasn't just here, Amgad, here you go.
You can have it.
I had to work for it. Yeah. And from there, it was like clockwork. So became paralegal, did my PLT. So I did that part-time while working for him full-time as the head paralegal in the admin area, which taught me a lot about the firm and also being a lawyer as well. Daniel told me I was going to be a lawyer straight away. So
He backed you.
straight away, yeah. He said, don't even worry about, because normally after you get admitted, some people go apply different jobs, different firms. He said, no, you're staying here. You're going to court first day.
See, what I've noticed over the journey with Judo and now how impactful certain people are, like your legal studies teacher, your parents guiding you through. Then you meet Daniel Ajak. Judo had football coaches, and there were psychologists in prison. It's amazing how there are people that you look back on that really impacted older people that had real impacts on your lives at the right time, maybe, but certainly whatever they did or whatever they said was really impactful.
Yeah.
Throw in the peer group element, but that mentor, that person who cares is really significant, right?
It's needed. You're just a kid, like first generation. You don't know how to navigate, you know. Lucky I had someone like Daniel, and they was saying that one of the sports player that I follow said I had the answers to the test because him. He's the one that gave me the formula.
Yeah.
All I had to do was follow it. I already had the answers to the test, and that's why I was, being at the firm. I just seen it on LinkedIn. I thought it was 5 years now.
Oh, 6 years.
6 years,
Yeah. In 5 days.
You guys both speak about coming down to Melbourne. So why you guys both choose Melbourne? Like, why is Melbourne like the hot spot? Like, why'd you guys pick Melbourne?
Also, it is an opportunity to use my skill set and my expertise to give back to the community. Because I went to law school because I want to be like my father. Because my father, though, he's not legally trained, so he doesn't have a Western legal education. How the justice system or the courts that worked in South Sudan, and in particular section of the community where I come from, Dinka, the elders set customary laws, so they dispute or litigate over issues, whether it's a family issue or an issue with another tribe, whether it's criminal matter or divorce. He inspired me to go to university because I'd said to myself, if I've got any of my father's trade and his integrity, well, law is perfect. If I get a law degree, I can do what my father did back home and continue to do, but in Australia. So when there was a lot of outcry about young South Sudanese men or young boys getting caught up with the Mooma right and all the offending, only at the time there weren't a lot of African lawyers, there weren't a lot of South Sudanese lawyers. There would have been 2 or 3 practicing lawyers here in Victoria, but mainly practice in person injury and commercial litigation. So there weren't criminal lawyers. There would have been other African criminal lawyers, but there weren't young men my age at the time, because I would have been 24, 26, who'd come in, because I could relate to judo. I mean, I was playing soccer with Amgad. So I had nephews who were doing dumb shit, and little brothers of like friends or cousins that I grew up with who getting caught up in that stuff, but I could relate to them. But also I sort of come here old enough to speak Dinka and be able to sort of be the bridge between the young person and the parents to really sort of alleviate their concern. So I said, well, I've got to be in Melbourne, and I think in terms of Melbourne being a hotspot for youth crime.
We've talked about Dinka and Nua. Is there a generation change where the rivalry of the East and the West and the Dinka and the Nua, is that dissipated? Is that no longer a source of division or risk in the community?
No, it's not. I mean, it's not these young kids. They sort of hang out on postcode. Not whether off. Like my cousin, he's Dinka. He's in the southeast. He'd be beefing some of his cousins who are from the western suburb. But he hangs out with kids from Nuer,
Nuer or Dinka, that's right.
And Nubian or Equatorian, who live in the southeast,
Because you're Aussies, right?
And Afghan, it's who you grow up with in the flats or in the suburbs, or who you grow up with in the school, and even within the western suburbs, within pockets of suburb, there's different groups. It's not, even if you go to the flats, there's also some different pockets. In my teenage years, these are my peers, when they were beefing or with each other and sort of getting to these phrase of violent disorder, it was mainly to do around like girls, disrespect, if I caught you talking to my sister and I didn't like that, I'll tell you, hey, like cut it off. If you're tough, Lewis, you say like, who do you think you are?
Don't mess with me. Yeah.
And then you go toe to toe. When I was a teenager, I mainly hang out with my cousins, so it'd sort of be me and a group of my cousins beefing with other boys from other group with their cousins.
That's been going on for time immemorial. That's not an African issue. I go back to my day, the Geordie boys, the Glennie boys, the Holmes, the Holmes Glen Sharps or the Geordie Sharp. Well, that's been going on for years. Those teenage issues. You said this about my girlfriend. You looked at my girlfriend, or you said this about my mum, or whatever. And then bang, you're at a train station and there's a whole bunch of carrot. That's been going on for decades, right?
And I think with Mooma, with the Mooma, right, it was sort of young kids, from teenagers who would have been hanging out together at the time, who've had a confrontation with the other group, and then it sort of spread, So it's sort of you've got 30 kids again going at each other. So I think that's what sort of made it terrible. Where
everything's filmed. Right? Yeah. So everything's filmed. So when I was 16, literally running from Glen Waverley Station, running home and then stopping at corners, checking the next block to see that I could get through the next block and getting home, nobody was filming it. But was I as scared as any 16-year-old today trying to get home? Yeah. But the reality was we would get to Glen Waverley Station and we would run the gauntlet to get home. So that has been going on for years. But you're right about the coverage, about how it's more prolific, that it's on everyone's phone. All this stuff gets seen. That amplifies it. Let's get to the legal stuff, right? I want to put a scenario. How does this work? I'm 16 years of age and I've just committed a serious crime. Call it aggravated burglary or home invasion. And I'm in the back of a divvy van and I'm on my way to a police station. Where do you guys get involved with me at that point as a 16-year-old offender and I'm in custody of the police? What happens? Who calls you? How does it roll?
I've had the situation, obviously, a fair few times. We get a call normally from the station.
From the police station?
Yeah, and we get asked the client to give them pre-interview advice. Before they get interviewed, we'll have a chat with them. Sometimes parents will reach out before the fact if they have been arrested, and just straight away, if they know me or Daniel, they'll call us directly and just let them know that their son's been picked up, take them to the station, and we'll expect a call from the station shortly. Speak to the child, give them that pre-interview advice. It's up to the police at that stage if they firstly want to charge them or remand them. Or
do you speak to police? Are you in negotiations with police or just discuss?
No, not at that stage.
No.
Not at that stage.
And what advice do you give them?
Varies depending on what the situation is. Yeah.
So if I get a young person, you're 16, you've been picked up for home invasion. Normally I'll get a phone call when the police are at their house. So I'll get on the call to the mum or the brother. I'd ask to speak to the sergeant who's in charge of the search warrant, and I'll ask for a copy of the search warrant, and then I'll tell the family that the police are there to do their job. You let them do their job, don't impede, because if you do, you're just going to make things hard for them and for you, and you could end up also being charged, because they just do their job. And if that search warrant says they can have access, you let them have access. I'll speak to the informant, or this is the police officer who's in charge of the investigation, and they'll tell me what the allegations are. They'll say, for example, we've got footage of the home invasion, we've seen some clothes, we want to see if these clothes are there. So I'll then tell my client, but and when you get to the police station, you don't talk to them, you don't tell them anything, not off tape. I'll tell the family members, you don't talk to the police, you don't tell them anything, and then I'll tell the police officer, as soon as you get to the station, before you interview the young person, ring me,
We've had stories from parents not happy with certain representation from lawyers before, and they've come to us because they trust in our background, and we know our culture. If we have a child of our background, and sometimes that does go a long way. Daniel, you've experienced this as well with parents.
Yeah, Judo and Lewis. What's really, if I was to get out of this interview this afternoon and go to the cells at Melbourne Children's Court, I'm just giving an example. and see a young person, child, from my part of the community, if that child, if there are no family supports at court, all that child's going to tell me is which mob they're from, and which clan, and all I've got to do is pick up a phone call and make a couple of phone calls, and I would attract his parents on, and I have his parents at court for him, and guess what? All of a sudden, that's a game changer, where if they had another lawyer, who's not South Sudanese or who's not me, they don't have access to that. They can't. They don't have that luxury. It's an advantage. Because I can speak. Because a lot of their parents wouldn't speak English. So say if it's a Dinka client, I can really get the parents' concern to me in Dinka, and I can express that to the young person, to really tell him or her in English, in plain language, the journey their parents have taken to get them here,
See, it's kind of interesting. Daniel's talking about, he's talking about lived experience. He's saying to the young kid, I'm not only am I your lawyer, but you've got to understand what's at stake here. It's a pretty interesting conversation. He's talking about your parents have changed their lives.
He's doing the thinking for them, because at that age they can't think that far ahead, or they're not aware of that, So for him to actually do that and get them to understand that, you're not just, it's not just about you, it's about, what your family has been through, what your family has risked for you to be in this country, So it's very lucky to have people like that in your corner, to be honest, And
we can articulate all the cultural experiences to the magistrate or judge in a way that maybe other people couldn't. And that does go a long way, especially if pleas in mitigation and things that have to be put before the court. There's a cultural thing that we do. For example, if a child, sometimes even though biologically someone's their father, it's not recognized because of the death, correct?
How do you mean? Explain.
So if your mum married someone, for example, and they've had children or whatnot, and he dies, the brother steps up of that, I'm talking about Judo, and,
right.
And even though biologically that brother is the father, in our culture they don't recognize it because of out of respect of the deceased.
Right.
And putting that to the court, just to explain things in terms of family dynamic, only someone like me or Daniel could put that to a magistrate, because they wouldn't understand. So coming from us, a magistrate will understand more broad aspects and also the specifics of how that child has been raised and what goes to their experience as well.
So right now there's a new law about the sentencing. Just want to run down the difference between, if I was to get sentenced probably 12 months ago to now, if I was to get sentenced for this exact same crime, how would that take place?
Well, so the Victorian government has adopted the Queensland approach. So if you do adult crime, you get adult time.
What's an adult crime? It's something that an adult would do, right?
So at 14, before the new laws came into effect, you can effectively still get sentenced as a child because the presumptions don't apply to you. But now, because of the new laws, so if you get home invasion, you're exposed to the same sentence that Judo got for his matter. So if you're found guilty or you plead guilty, you're exposed to, say, if the maximum penalty is life or 25 years or 20 years imprisonment, there's really nothing stopping a sentencing judge to sending you more than 3 years or for 5 or 6 years jail term. Of the 8 years of practice in Victoria as a criminal defence lawyer, I've had young kids, like teenagers that I've acted for across from First Nation to African Australian or South Sudanese to Anglo Australians who've really who've taken advantage of the police caution program, who've taken advantage of the diversion program, who've taken advantage of the restorative justice program, where they've been given like, despite having committed serious offending like armed robbery, they've been given an opportunity to bury that, because if you get diversion, you get a caution, you're burying that past. So if you're a young person, you sort of, and you get the right people in your life, like Judah had his mum, and the footy coaches, and those he was in prison with, or Amgad's parents or his school teacher, then you can look, that's not going to show up in my criminal history. no one will ever have to know about it, and you move on, and some of those kids, have gone, to do big things.
I've always said to people, because I'm pretty blunt, I say this is not the Disney Channel. We can never have happily after for every child, but we can give them the opportunity. And yes, so my opinion, I'm not sure what Daniel thinks about it. Yeah, it starts from the home, and also the services that you guys provide, and all the other programs that we give to children. There's great people in the community.
What we're going to do as a community is really find new members of the community here in Victoria who sort of come in. It's really important from that early age to identify, what are the supports in the family home. So, for example, in today's family home, who's only his mum, dad wasn't really sort of in the picture. He had 6 or 7 other siblings. Mum can't read or write. It's an oldest kid. So if you're a government service, is there anyone who's got capacity to help them at home? If that child doesn't have that, well, can he get extra support at school? So when the school bell goes off at 3:15, can have a one-on-one session with his maths teacher, can have a one-on-one session with his science teacher, with his history teacher, to ensure that the homework gets done at the school, So when he goes home, he's not going to worry about that, or that when he comes back to school tomorrow morning, you definitely know for certain that homework is done.
My observation throughout the series has been that pretty clear the kids that are at risk. So when they're at risk, the village has got to get around them. The community's got to get around them. It's kind of like we've got to identify it and say, right, what's our role as a community? Where do we step in? How do we step in? Is it through government services, or is it simply through the community football club or basketball or sporting club to say, has somebody gone to pick up, young Amgad? Has somebody gone to pick up who's getting so-and-so to training? That's where the community comes in, because sporting communities during those teenage years are clearly vital.
Yes.
They are vital.
Very, yeah.
And I think it made a difference in my life that I call them Australian parents, who were prepared to buy me soccer boots, because my sister and my uncle had no interest in me playing soccer because they wanted me to go to university. And my parents, had no interest in that, that I had Australian parents who were prepared to,
Australian members of the football club purchase your footy boots.
So, no, these were family friends through the church, but they were happy to pay for my soccer boots, And then I had another mate, like an Aussie mate, who went through the school with me. His parents would pick me up, So we'll have training after school. They'll drive me home, I'll get, I'll eat, they'll pick me up game day.
And I went through the same experience. It's the same thing that Daniel just said. I had a friend that linked me in with a soccer club, and there was a coach that gave me my first soccer boots, drove me to all the games, picked me up, dropped me off. That doesn't matter. He treated his son like me, the exact same way, and that's those little things that
make a big difference.
Yeah, big difference.
Can I just send a note out to a shout out to all the football coaches, sports coaches, netball coaches, footy coaches, soccer, basketball. You people play an enormous role in youth crime, and that's really apparent. I'm not saying that sport's the panacea, that it's the silver bullet that fixes everything, but I am saying people who become a coach of a sporting team, of a junior sporting team with teenagers, you are incredibly influential and an amazing, powerful asset to dealing with not only youth crime but a number of social issues. Because to keep kids involved playing sport is really clear that's a big part of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, because sport's not only just about scoring a couple goals on the weekend.
No.
Because after the games, you're just kicking about with the friends, coaches, parents be there, no matter all through the ages. And that's what keeps kids engaged. That's what makes them feel like there's a bigger purpose.
Most refugees or migrants, don't have a lot of our parents are illiterate, so it's really, I think it's a massive problem.
A big part of when we talk about solutions has been the lived experience mentor program. It's almost becoming a movement. And Judo will say there's only one Judo. But if we had 100 Judos out there in the field right now, how many clients? We talk about 10 clients you have. Imagine that. If all of a sudden you've got 50 to 100 Judos out there, what would be the impact?
It'd be massive, Lewis. It'd be huge. It'd be more than significant. It's not another sort of checkbook exercise where they can't speak to a youth worker a couple of times a week that they don't know. just older members of the community who want to do the right thing and can't really relate to the young person.
Yeah,
You know,
well intended, but there's a big difference with the lived experience mentor outcome in terms of the targeted impact and the credibility. There's no doubt the more time I spend, you and I talking and speaking to people like Daniel and Amgad and Ahmed and Mike Bush, we've got a real opportunity to really address this issue. Lived experience mentor plays a big part. Community plays a big part. School teachers, sporting clubs, coaches, parents at home. But it seems like as each episode goes by, we get another bit of, we get another ingredient to the solution. And that's what I think's exciting. I've learned a hell of a lot today. I hope you have too.
100%. 100%, yeah. Like, I'd like to give you guys your props, your flowers. You know, you guys are doing an unbelievable job in the community. You know, you guys, you know, I look up to you guys. I bet you 100%, like, you know, 100 other young people will be looking up to you guys. Just, you know, keep doing what you guys doing and you know, props to you guys, you know. Thank you for listening to Lead Good. You can follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you'd like to stay part of the conversation, you can find us on social media at Lead Good Pod.
Oh, good one.